Welcome back to the channel everyone, and thank you for joining me today, because if you are passionate about hidden treasures, unbelievable coin stories, and the kind of discoveries that can turn pocket change into life-changing money, you are absolutely in the right place. And today's story is one that continues to shock collectors, spark debates, and fuel dreams across the coin collecting world as we dive deep into the mysterious and legendary 2014 D1 cent, a seemingly ordinary Lincoln penny that under extraordinary circumstances has been rumored, discussed, speculated upon, and analyzed as a coin that could reach an astonishing value of up to $16 million due to a rare convergence of errors, minting mistakes, unusual production anomalies, and collector demand that elevates it from common circulation coin to a potential numismatic legend. And as we begin this journey, it's important to understand that the modern penny is often overlooked, dismissed as insignificant, or ignored entirely, yet history has proven time and again that the most unassuming coins are sometimes the ones that carry the greatest surprises, and the 2014 D Lincoln cent minted at the Denver Mint appears to be one of those rare cases where timing, technology, human error, and material science intersected in a way that created something truly extraordinary. Because in 2014 the United States Mint was producing billions of Lincoln cents using zinc planchets coated with a thin layer of copper. A process that is highly automated and generally precise, but even in the most advanced minting environments mistakes can happen, and when they do, those mistakes can create anomalies that collectors will chase for decades. And the first layer of intrigue surrounding the 2014 D1 cent begins with the possibility of transitional errors and experimental planchets. Because although official records state that standard zinc cores were used, collectors have long theorized that a small number of experimental or improperly mixed planchets may have entered production, resulting in cents that exhibit unusual weight, magnetic properties, or metallic composition that does not match standard specifications. And when such a coin is authenticated as being struck on the wrong planchet or a rare alloy, its value can skyrocket into the millions, especially if it is unique or one of only a handful known to exist. And adding to this mystery is the potential for double die errors, which occur when the die used to strike the coin receives multiple misaligned impressions from the hub, causing visible doubling in the design elements such as the date, the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust." And while minor doubling is relatively common, true hub doubling that is strong, dramatic, and consistent is extremely rare in modern coinage, and a 2014 D cent with a bold, unquestionable double die obverse or reverse could instantly become one of the most valuable modern pennies ever discovered. Particularly if the doubling is strong enough to be seen without magnification and affects multiple design elements in a clear and unmistakable way. And then there is the possibility of a mule error, one of the rarest and most fascinating types of mint mistakes, where two mismatched dies are paired together, such as a cent obverse with a non-cent reverse or a design from a different year or denomination entirely. And although mule errors are exceedingly rare, they are not impossible, and when one surfaces it often commands prices that seem unbelievable, because such errors challenge the fundamental expectations of how coins are made. And a 2014 D1 cent mule error would instantly become a centerpiece of modern numismatics, potentially justifying a valuation in the multi-million-dollar range if authenticated and confirmed as unique. And another factor that contributes to the legendary status of the 2014 D penny is the possibility of dramatic off-metal strikes, where a cent is struck on a planchet intended for another denomination such as a dime, nickel, or even a foreign coin, and these types of errors often result in coins that are smaller, larger, thinner, or thicker than normal, sometimes with incomplete designs or unusual edge characteristics. And when combined with a modern date like 2014 and a Denver Mint mark, such an error becomes even more intriguing because it demonstrates a breakdown in modern quality control that is rarely seen, and collectors are willing to pay extraordinary premiums for modern errors precisely because they are so unexpected. And beyond planchet and die errors, there are striking errors that can dramatically increase value, including multiple strikes where the coin is struck more than once with misalignment, creating overlapping or rotated designs, broad strikes where the coin is struck without a retaining collar causing it to spread outward, and struck through errors where foreign materials such as grease, cloth, metal shavings, or debris interferes with the strike and leaves unusual impressions or missing details. And while many of these errors are relatively modest in value when minor, extreme examples that are visually dramatic, clearly documented, and one of a kind can reach astonishing prices, particularly when they come from a modern year like 2014 where the expectation of perfection is high. And one of the most talked about possibilities regarding the $16 million valuation is the theory of a unique combination error, where multiple rare mistakes occur on the same coin, such as a wrong planchet combined with a double die and an off-center strike, creating a perfect storm of rarity that cannot be replicated. And in the world of numismatics, uniqueness is king, because when a coin is truly one of a kind, its value is determined not by price guides but by what collectors are willing to pay. And wealthy collectors have been known to spend millions to secure a single piece that completes a collection or establishes a legacy, and the condition of the coin plays a crucial role as well, because a high-grade example with sharp details, minimal damage, and strong eye appeal will always command a far higher price than a heavily worn or damaged specimen, and a 2014 D cent that somehow survived in near-perfect condition while also exhibiting a spectacular error would be the ultimate prize. And another layer of intrigue comes from die state progression, where early die states show crisp details while later die states show cracks, chips, cuds, and other forms of die deterioration, and a dramatic retained cud or massive die break on a 2014 D penny could create a bold, raised blob of metal that alters the design in a way that is both visually striking and extremely rare, and if such a die failure occurred early in production and was corrected quickly, only a handful of coins might exist, making them highly sought after, and the Denver Mint's production environment adds another dimension, because each mint has its own machinery, procedures, and personnel, meaning that certain errors may be unique to a specific facility, and a Denver-specific anomaly from 2014 would stand apart from Philadelphia or San Francisco issues, and then there is the possibility of intentional or accidental test strikes, where coins are struck during setup or calibration and accidentally released into circulation, sometimes with unusual pressure, alignment, or finish that sets them apart from standard issues, and while such pieces are rarely acknowledged officially, their existence is supported by documented cases throughout mint history, and when discovered they often become highly prized because they offer a glimpse behind the scenes of the minting process, and as rumors and stories circulate about a $16 million 2014 D1 cent, skepticism naturally arises. But skepticism has accompanied nearly every major coin discovery in history, from the 1943 copper cent to the 1974 aluminum cent, and in many cases what began as speculation eventually became accepted fact once scientific testing, metallurgical analysis, and expert authentication confirmed the coin's uniqueness, and authentication is a critical step in establishing value, because without certification from a respected grading service, even the most spectacular error will struggle to achieve its full potential. And the process of authentication involves weighing the coin, measuring its dimensions, analyzing its metal content using advanced techniques, and comparing it to known examples and mint records, and when a coin passes these tests and is encapsulated with an official label describing its errors, its marketability and value increase dramatically, and the story behind the coin also matters, because provenance, or documented ownership history, can add credibility and desirability, especially if the coin was discovered in an unexpected way such as in pocket change, a bankroll, or a family collection, and stories of ordinary people finding extraordinary coins capture the imagination of the public and drive interest and demand is the final piece of the puzzle, because value is ultimately determined by how badly collectors want a coin, and in the modern era, media coverage, online forums, social media, and auction results can amplify interest to unprecedented levels, and a confirmed, spectacular 2014 D1 cent error could become a viral sensation, attracting attention not only from traditional coin collectors but also from investors, museums, and institutions, all of whom may compete to acquire it, driving the price higher and higher. And while $16 million may sound unbelievable for a penny, history has shown that rarity and uniqueness. Next. 1982 D today, because this is the place where everyday pocket change turns into unbelievable treasure stories and where coins most people overlook can hide life-changing value, and today we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating and mysterious modern coin stories ever imagined, the 1982 D quarter dollar. A Washington quarter that may look completely ordinary at first glance yet has become surrounded by an extraordinary aura of rarity, errors, and minting mistakes so powerful that collectors believe certain examples could be worth as much as $12 million, and to truly understand how a quarter struck in 1982 at the Denver Mint could possibly reach such an astonishing valuation, we must carefully explore the historical background of the United States Mint during the early 1980s, the technical processes involved in striking quarters, the unusual conditions present at the Denver Mint that year, and the many types of errors and rare possibilities that can elevate a simple 25-cent coin into a numismatic legend, because the early 1980s were a turbulent and transitional period for U.S. coinage as rising metal prices, aging machinery, and immense production pressure created an environment where mistakes were far more likely to occur, and in 1982 specifically, the Denver Mint was producing enormous quantities of Washington quarters using copper-nickel-clad planchets consisting of outer layers of copper-nickel bonded to a pure copper core, a composition that had been standard since 1965 but which still required precise bonding, alignment, and striking pressure to execute correctly, and when even a single step in that process went wrong, the result could be a coin that should never have existed. And one of the most powerful explanations behind the $12 million valuation theory for the 1982 D quarter centers on the possibility of a wrong planchet error, which occurs when a coin is struck on a blank that was intended for a completely different denomination or purpose, and in the case of a 1982 D quarter, this could include being struck on a planchet intended for a half-dollar, a foreign coin, a thick experimental blank, or even a silver planchet that was never meant for circulation, and such a mistake would immediately reveal itself through abnormal weight, thickness, edge appearance, and metallic sound, and when authenticated through advanced metallurgical testing by professional grading services, a wrong planchet quarter can become one of the rarest and most valuable error coins in existence, because wrong planchet errors involving quarters are exceptionally rare and often unique, and uniqueness is one of the most powerful drivers of value in numismatics. And adding even more intrigue is the long-discussed possibility that a small number of 1982 D quarters may have been struck on experimental or leftover silver planchets during internal testing or metal transition evaluations, and while the Mint has never officially confirmed such releases, history has proven again and again that undocumented experimental coins do exist, and when they surface and are authenticated, they often command prices that defy logic, and beyond planchet errors. Another major contributor to the potential value of the 1982 D quarter is the possibility of a dramatic double die error, which occurs during the die creation process when the design hub impresses the coin's image onto the die more than once with slight misalignment, resulting in clear and consistent doubling on design elements such as the date, the word liberty, the motto "In God We Trust," or even Washington's facial features, and unlike machine doubling which is caused by loose dies and generally has little value, a true double die is embedded into the die itself and produces strong, unmistakable doubling that collectors aggressively seek. And because die production technology had already improved significantly by the early 1980s, true double dies from 1982 are extremely rare, making any bold double die 1982 D quarter an instant numismatic heavyweight, and if such a coin were found with strong doubling across multiple design elements and preserved in high mint state condition, it could easily justify a multi-million-dollar valuation. And then there is the astonishing possibility of a mule error, one of the rarest mistakes the mint can make, occurring when two dies not intended to be paired together are accidentally combined, such as a Washington quarter obverse paired with a reverse intended for a different denomination, a different year, or even a different coin series altogether, and mule errors are often unique, representing coins that technically should not exist, and when authenticated, they frequently sell for staggering amounts because collectors are effectively bidding on a one-of-a-kind artifact of minting history, and a confirmed 1982 D quarter mule error would be a historic discovery capable of supporting a $12 million valuation due to its absolute rarity and impossibility. And beyond these headline-level errors, there are numerous striking errors that can dramatically elevate the value of a quarter when they are severe and visually striking, including off-center strikes where a significant portion of the design is missing and blank metal is exposed, multiple strikes where the coin is struck more than once with rotation or misalignment creating overlapping images, broad strikes where the coin spreads outward beyond its intended diameter due to the absence of a retaining collar, and struck through errors where grease, cloth, or metal fragments interfere with the strike, causing missing or distorted design details, and while minor versions of these errors are relatively common and modestly valued, extreme examples from a year like 1982, especially from the Denver Mint, are far rarer and can command extraordinary premiums, and one of the most powerful value multipliers in numismatics is the presence of combination errors, where multiple rare mistakes occur on the same coin, such as a wrong planchet combined with a double die and an off-center strike, creating a coin so rare and visually dramatic that it cannot be compared to standard price guides and instead becomes the subject of elite private negotiations and headline-making auctions. And in the highest levels of coin collecting, uniqueness reigns supreme, because collectors who already own everything else are willing to pay virtually any price to secure a coin that no one else on earth can own, and condition plays a massive role in this equation, because an extraordinary error coin preserved in mint state condition with strong luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks will always be worth exponentially more than a similar coin that shows circulation wear. And if a spectacular 1982 D-quarter error were discovered in pristine condition, perhaps pulled from an original bank roll or an untouched mint bag, it would instantly become a global numismatic sensation, and further adding to the mystery of the 1982 D-quarter are die deterioration errors, which occur as dies wear, crack, chip, or break over time, producing raised metal lines, distorted lettering, cuds, or dramatic deformations in the design, and while small die cracks are common, massive die breaks or retained cuds that dramatically alter the coin's appearance are far rarer and highly sought after, especially if the die failed shortly afterward, limiting the number of coins struck. And the Denver Mint itself adds another layer of intrigue because during the early 1980s it was operating under immense production pressure using equipment of varying ages, creating conditions ripe for unusual and undocumented errors. And then there is the fascinating possibility of setup or test strikes, coins produced during press calibration or die testing that were never intended for circulation but somehow escaped into the public, often displaying unusual strike pressure, alignment, or surface texture. And although such pieces are rarely acknowledged officially, their existence is well documented in numismatic history, and when authenticated, they rank among the most valuable coins ever sold. And as stories circulate within collector communities and online forums about a $12,001,982 D-quarter, skepticism is natural and even healthy, but skepticism has always accompanied major coin discoveries because many of the most valuable coins in the world were initially dismissed as myths or mistakes before scientific testing proved otherwise, and authentication is absolutely critical because without certification from a respected grading service, even the most dramatic error coin cannot reach its full market potential, and the authentication process involves precise weighing, dimensional analysis, edge inspection, metal composition testing, microscopic examination, and comparison. With known mint records and verified error types, and once a coin passes these rigorous steps and is encapsulated with an official error attribution, its credibility and desirability increase dramatically, and provenance can elevate its value even further, especially if the coin's discovery story is compelling, such as being found in circulation, an old collection, or a sealed roll untouched for decades. Because collectors love coins with stories, and stories fuel demand, and demand ultimately determines value, because regardless of how rare or spectacular a coin may be, its worth is defined by what collectors are willing to pay, and in today's digital age, a single discovery can explode across social media, auction platforms. Next. 1989 quarter dollar, today because this channel is all about uncovering hidden value, surprising rarity, and unbelievable stories hiding in everyday pocket change, and today we are diving into one of the most intriguing and talked about modern coin mysteries, the 1989 quarter dollar, a coin that most people have spent without a second thought yet, which has become surrounded by stories, theories, and collector speculation suggesting that certain extraordinary examples could be worth as much as $11 million due to rare errors, minting mistakes, and unusual possibilities that pushed this ordinary Washington quarter into legendary territory. And to truly understand how a 1989 Philadelphia minted quarter could even be discussed in the same breath as multi-million-dollar coins, we need to go deep into the historical context of the United States Mint in the late 1980s, the technical realities of coin production, and the types of errors that can transform a common coin into a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, because the late 1980s were a period of massive output for the U.S. Mint as demand for circulating coinage remained high and production schedules were relentless, especially at the Philadelphia Mint, which in 1989 struck hundreds of millions of Washington quarters. And when mints are operating at such high volumes under constant pressure, even small deviations in the minting process can produce extraordinary mistakes, and those mistakes, when rare enough, become the foundation of immense value. And one of the first and most important factors to consider is the planchet itself, because every coin begins as a blank metal disc that must be the correct composition, weight, thickness, and diameter, and in 1989 the standard quarter planchet consisted of a copper core sandwiched between two copper-nickel layers, bonded together under immense pressure. And if anything went wrong during the blanking or bonding process, the resulting coin could be fundamentally different from every other quarter struck that year. And one of the most powerful value-driving possibilities for the 1989 P quarter is a wrong planchet error, where a quarter is accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even another country, and such errors can reveal themselves through incorrect weight, unusual coloration, abnormal thickness, or an edge that does not match standard specifications, and wrong planchet errors are among the most dramatic and sought after mistakes in numismatics because they represent coins that were never supposed to exist, and in rare cases, a quarter struck on an experimental, foreign, or silver planchet can become a unique artifact, and uniqueness is one of the strongest forces driving multi-million-dollar valuations, and adding to this intrigue is the long-standing fascination with experimental and transitional planchets. Because although the official composition of quarters did not change in 1989, the U.S. Mint has a long history of testing metals, bonding techniques, and planchet sources internally, and occasionally test blanks or improperly segregated planchets can slip into regular production, and if a 1989 P quarter were discovered to have an anomalous metal composition confirmed through scientific testing, it would instantly rise to elite status, and beyond planchet errors. One of the most exciting and widely discussed possibilities involves double die varieties, which occur not during striking but during die creation, when the hub impresses the design onto the die more than once with slight misalignment, resulting in strong, raised doubling that is consistent across all coins struck from that die, and unlike mechanical doubling which is common and usually flat and worthless, true double dies display bold separation in lettering, numerals, and design elements. And if a 1989 P quarter were discovered with strong doubling on the date, the word Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or Washington's profile, it would immediately attract intense attention from collectors, especially because strong double dies from the late 1980s are relatively scarce due to improvements in die manufacturing technology, and scarcity combined with dramatic visual appeal can drive prices far beyond standard expectations. And in an extreme scenario where a double die 1989 P quarter also exhibited additional rare characteristics, such as exceptional strike quality or pristine preservation, the value could escalate into previously unimaginable territory. And then there is the extraordinary possibility of a mule error, one of the rarest and most fascinating mistakes the mint can make, occurring when two dies from different coin types are accidentally paired together, resulting in a coin with mismatched obverse and reverse designs, and mule errors are typically unique or extremely limited in number, making them holy grails among collectors. And if a Washington quarter obverse dated 1989 were paired with a reverse not intended for that coin, whether from another denomination, another year, or another series entirely, it would represent a historic error with no comparable price guide reference, meaning its value would be determined purely by collector demand, and at the highest levels of numismatics, collectors are willing to pay extraordinary sums to own coins that no one else can. And that level of exclusivity is exactly what fuels eight-figure valuations, and striking errors also play a major role in the mythology surrounding the 1989 P quarter, because during high-speed production, coins can be struck off-center, struck multiple times, struck without a collar resulting in broad strikes, or struck through foreign materials such as grease, cloth, or metal fragments, and while minor examples of these errors are common and modestly priced, extreme examples that dramatically alter the coin's appearance are far rarer and far more valuable, and an off-center strike that still shows a full date and mint mark while missing a large portion of the design can be visually stunning, and when combined with high-grade surfaces, such coins can command astonishing premiums, and multiple strike errors where the coin is struck again after being misaligned or rotated can create surreal overlapping images that captivate collectors. And broad strikes where the coin expands outward beyond its normal diameter due to the absence of a retaining collar can also be highly desirable when the deformation is dramatic and well-defined. And then there are struck-through errors, which occur when something comes between the die and the planchet during striking, causing missing or distorted design elements, and while grease-filled dies often produce weak strikes that are less valuable, struck-through solid objects can create unique and highly collectible impressions. And one of the most powerful value multipliers is the presence of combination errors, where multiple rare mistakes occur on a single coin, because each additional error layer reduces the population and increases the coin's uniqueness, and a 1989 P-quarter displaying a wrong planchet combined with a double die or an off-center strike would be virtually impossible to price using conventional standards, and such a coin would likely become the subject of private negotiations among elite collectors rather than public auction comparisons. And condition is another absolutely critical factor, because rarity alone does not guarantee maximum value, and a spectacular error preserved in mint state condition with original luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks will always be worth exponentially more than a similar coin that has been circulated, and if a dramatic 1989 P-quarter error were discovered in pristine condition, perhaps pulled from an original sealed bank roll or an old collection that had never been examined closely, it would instantly become a sensation across the numismatic world, and the Philadelphia Mint itself adds another layer of intrigue because it does not use a mint mark, meaning that all 1989 quarters without a mint mark were struck there, and while this means high mintage numbers overall, it also means that identifying rare varieties requires careful examination rather than simple mint mark filtering, and this has historically allowed some extraordinary errors to go unnoticed for years or even decades, and beyond physical errors, die deterioration and die failure. Errors can also contribute to significant value, because as dies wear out, crack, chip, or break, they can produce raised lines, distorted lettering, and even large chunks of missing design known as cuds, and while minor die cracks are common, massive die breaks that dramatically alter the coin's appearance are far rarer, especially when the die fails shortly after, limiting the number of coins struck. And such dramatic late-stage die errors can be extremely desirable, and adding to the fascination surrounding the 1989 P-quarter is the possibility of special strikes or setup strikes, coins produced during press calibration or die alignment that were never intended for circulation but somehow escaped, often showing unusual surface textures, strike pressure, or alignment, and although these pieces are rarely acknowledged officially, their existence is well documented across multiple decades of U.S. coinage, and when authenticated, they can rank among the most valuable modern coins ever discovered, and as stories circulate about an $11 million 1989 P-quarter, it is natural for skepticism to arise, but skepticism has always accompanied major numismatic discoveries. Last 1991 quarter dollar. Today we are diving deep into the fascinating and mysterious story of the 1991 P-quarter dollar, a coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint that most people have spent without hesitation yet which has become surrounded by speculation, collector lore, and numismatic theories suggesting that certain rare examples could be worth as much as $10 million due to astonishing errors, minting mistakes, and highly unusual possibilities that push this common Washington quarter into the realm of legendary coins. And to understand how such a valuation could even be imagined, we must carefully explore the environment of the United States Mint in the early 1990s, the production pressures faced by the Philadelphia Mint, the technical steps involved in striking quarters, and the wide range of errors that can occur when metal, machinery, and human oversight intersect under intense demand. Because 1991 was a year of massive coin production with hundreds of millions of quarters struck to keep up with circulation needs, and when production reaches that scale even small deviations can create rare and remarkable mistakes, and one of the most important areas to examine is the planchet, the blank metal disc upon which every coin is struck, because quarters in 1991 were supposed to be struck on copper-nickel-clad planchets with a pure copper core, and if anything went wrong during blanking, bonding, or sorting, the resulting coin could be fundamentally different from every other quarter of that year, and one of the most powerful explanations behind the extraordinary value theories for the 1991 P quarter involves wrong planchet errors, which occur when a coin is struck on a blank intended for another denomination, another country, or even an experimental or test purpose, and such errors can be identified through abnormal weight, unusual color, incorrect thickness, or an edge that does not match standard specifications, and wrong planchet quarters are among the most desirable errors in all of numismatics because they represent coins that were never supposed to exist, and in rare cases they are unique, and uniqueness is one of the strongest drivers of multi-million-dollar valuations, and adding even more intrigue is the long-discussed possibility that some quarters from this era could have been struck on experimental or improperly segregated planchets, because while the mint officially maintained strict controls, history has proven that experimental blanks and foreign planchets have occasionally slipped into regular production, and when such coins surface and are authenticated, they often become headline-making discoveries, and beyond planchet errors, double die varieties represent another powerful path to extraordinary value, because double dies occur during die creation when the hub impresses the design onto the die more than once with slight misalignment, producing bold, raised doubling that is consistent across all coins struck from that die. And unlike machine doubling, which is flat and generally worthless, true double dies show clear separation in lettering, numerals, and design elements, and if a 1991 P quarter were discovered with strong doubling on the date, the word Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or Washington's portrait, it would immediately draw intense attention from collectors, especially because true double dies from the late 20th century are far less common due to improvements in die manufacturing technology. And rarity combined with dramatic visual appeal can drive prices far beyond typical expectations, and the situation becomes even more compelling if such a double die were paired with exceptional preservation, because condition multiplies value dramatically, and then there is the extraordinary possibility of a mule error, one of the rarest and most fascinating mistakes the mint can make, occurring when two dies not intended to be used together are accidentally paired, resulting in a coin with mismatched obverse and reverse designs, and mule errors are often unique or extremely limited in number, making them highly coveted among elite collectors, and a confirmed 1991 P quarter mule error would represent a historic anomaly with no direct price comparison, meaning its value would be determined entirely by collector demand. And at the highest levels of the hobby, collectors are willing to pay astonishing sums to own something no one else can, and striking errors also play a major role in the mythology surrounding the 1991 P quarter, because during high-speed production coins can be struck off-center, struck multiple times, struck without a retaining collar resulting in broad strikes, or struck through foreign materials such as grease, cloth, or metal fragments, and while small or subtle examples of these errors are relatively common and modestly valued, extreme examples that dramatically alter the coin's appearance are far rarer and far more valuable, and an off-center strike that still shows a full date while missing a large portion of the design can be visually stunning and highly desirable, especially when preserved in high grade, and multiple strike errors can create surreal overlapping images that captivate collectors, and broad strikes can result in oversized coins with distorted legends that stand out immediately, and struck-through errors involving solid objects can create unique impressions that are impossible to replicate, and one of the most powerful value amplifiers in numismatics is the presence of combination errors, where multiple rare mistakes occur on the same coin, because each additional error layer dramatically reduces the population and increases the coin's uniqueness, and a 1991 P quarter displaying a wrong planchet combined with a double die or an off-center strike would be virtually impossible to price using conventional guides, pushing it into the realm of private sales and elite auctions, and condition remains absolutely critical throughout this discussion because rarity alone does not guarantee maximum value, and an extraordinary error preserved in mint state condition with strong luster, sharp details, and minimal contact marks will always be worth exponentially more than a similar coin that has seen circulation, and many of the most valuable coins ever discovered were found in rolls, bags, or collections that had been untouched for decades, and the Philadelphia Mint adds another layer of intrigue because it does not use a mint mark, meaning all 1991 quarters without a mint mark originated there, and while this means high overall mintage numbers, it also means that identifying rare varieties requires careful inspection rather than simple mint mark filtering, and this has historically allowed some significant errors to go unnoticed for years. And die deterioration errors further expand the range of valuable possibilities, because as dies wear, crack, or break, they can produce raised lines, distorted lettering, and even large chunks of missing design known as cuds. And while small die cracks are common, massive die breaks that dramatically alter the coin's appearance are far rarer, especially when the die fails shortly afterward, limiting the number of coins struck, and such dramatic late-stage die errors can be highly sought after. And then there is the intriguing possibility of special strikes or setup strikes, coins produced during press calibration or testing that were never intended for circulation but somehow escaped, often displaying unusual surface textures, strike pressure, or alignment. And while these pieces are rarely acknowledged officially, their existence is well documented across decades of U.S. coinage, and when authenticated they can rank among the most valuable modern coins known. And as stories circulate about a $10 million 1991 P quarter, it is natural for skepticism to arise, but skepticism has accompanied nearly every major numismatic discovery. Because many legendary coins were initially dismissed as myths before scientific testing confirmed their authenticity, and authentication is absolutely essential because without verification from a respected grading service even the most spectacular coin cannot achieve its full market potential, and the authentication process involves precise weight measurement, dimensional analysis, edge inspection, metal composition testing, microscopic examination, and comparison with known minting practices. And once a coin is authenticated and encapsulated with an official error designation, its credibility increases dramatically, opening the door to elite collectors and institutions, and provenance can elevate value even further, especially if the discovery story is compelling, such as a coin found in circulation, inherited from an old collection, or discovered in an untouched hoard. Because collectors are deeply drawn to stories, and stories drive demand, and demand ultimately determines value. Because no matter how rare or spectacular a coin may be, its worth is defined by what collectors are willing to pay, and in today's interconnected world a single discovery can spread across forums, social media, and global auction platforms within days, transforming an ordinary-looking quarter into a worldwide sensation. And a confirmed extraordinary 1991 P quarter could attract not only elite collectors but also investors and museums.